evening. And if you're just tuning in, thanks for hanging in there. We're a few minutes late. That's my fault because I thought I sent our wonderful guest I'm about to introduce in a few minutes. That was my fault. It didn't send through. But welcome. You're listening live to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. I'm going to remind you before anything, we're not on a regular YouTube channel. If you've seen my banner, I have all the links to our shows listed there. So we're broadcasting live tonight on the UFO Paranormal YouTube channel. Again, thank you for attending if you're listening live or even if you're listening to the rebroadcast. If you've never been here before, my show, I like to feature all aspects. I call it the supernatural. I like to have a positive spin with it. We cover anything, could be UFOs, paranormal, anything to the law of attraction, power of the mind. And the guests that I feature are people, regular everyday people that are doing phenomenal things through the work that they do to make a positive change for humanity. A little bit about myself. I'm a Canadian psychic medium. I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor. And I'm also a nurse. And tonight, we have a returning guest who is a good friend of mine. We're both so busy, we don't get enough time to ever chat or get together since we need to do shows together. I'll introduce him. His name is Aage Nost. He's a fellow podcaster. He is an author. I like to call him a visionary. He's a mastermind creator, as well as he speaks multiple languages. He's also a pilot. He's done many, many things. He's a wealth of knowledge. And I also added in our banner, including sharing what he's received due to a universal download. I'm sure we'll touch on all those things. Aage Nost. Welcome, Aage. How are you?
I am wonderful.
I'm glad. I'm glad to have you here. Like I said to our listeners, we just finished up our paranormal host chat. We did a interesting topic tonight about EVPs actually, and well, really pareidolia and what the mind sees in pictures that may necessarily not be there. And a lot of us shared some of our personal pictures that we've caught that seem to have a paranormal ring to them, even some that may look paranormal that really weren't once they were explained. So, how have you been, my friend?
Yeah, when you're speaking of EVPs and taking pictures of dead folks,
Mhm.
it's it's it is one of those things that people wonder, yeah, maybe it isn't true or maybe it is, but you can't really do that on a predictable way, but yes, you can.
Well, let's tell them a little bit more about that. I also know you've done photos catching people's auras with that special camera. The name escapes me of the type of camera, but I'm sure people would love to hear more even about that.
Well, yeah, you can find these Carillion photo equipment
That, yeah.
contraptions out there in different places. They're not easy to find, but when you find them, people, these pictures have to be taken, in presence.
Mhm.
But I have one where I can see the big aura standing out
That's
around me. But what I mentioned first is that yes, you can take pictures on a predictable way of people that has departed.
I want to
There,
hear.
let me tell you a little story. There is this I read decades ago while I was still back in Europe. There was a guy in France, down in the Toulouse area. I forget the name of the town, but he he took pictures of dead people all the time.
Okay.
The way he did that, he got a hold of a small, well, looked like about a 2 foot tall Tesla coil.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
then
Tell
he
me
took
about
that
this.
Tesla coil with him, and then he had a long extension cord where he was able to plug it in, and went to the graveyard, put it next to the grave.
Hmm.
And then he flipped the switch, turned it on, took his camera, walked away about, it looked like 20 feet or so, and started taking pictures. And in those pictures, it was not uncommon that he saw the guy that was in the ground. He was standing on top of the ground next to the grave,
Did he
or he
give
was
instructions
walking
at all?
towards him.
Did he give them instructions or ask them to appear, or he just used the coil?
No, I don't think there was anything about that in the article,
Mhm.
because he just took pictures of them. And then when he starts showing them around town, hey, southern France, that was the Bible Belt of Europe, so the Catholic
Yeah.
Bible Belt, that goes from there all the way down to Italy and places. But the people in town, they got so scared of him, they thought he was working with Satan, of course. So they ran him out of town. And he said that if he had not left, they would have killed him.
Oh.
But he took those pictures by using a Tesla coil.
Mhm.
Whatever is within that electromagnetic field of the Tesla coil
Mhm.
showed up on the film in the camera.
Do you think that the spirit was using the energy, or do you just think because the extra energy? Sorry, my dog has been very clingy today. Or that the energy that was there just helped to manifest and show everything that was there?
Well, the picture wasn't totally clear. Of course, then again, that was 1960s technology on pictures,
Right.
but it I am not totally sure if it was actually the soul or the spirit of the person, or if it was the astral vehicle. The
Okay.
astral vehicle is usually a little more fuzzy in the edges around it, and a little more unclear in you can see the eyes, but they're not totally clear when you can look at it, because it's just an energy that is
Mhm.
attached to the physical body. When the physical body dies, then this energy is released, and after a while that energy will dissipate or break up. So, and within a couple of days or so that the guy was put in the ground, the energy field was still hanging around.
Okay, so what I got to ask you, for people to understand this better, when you're talking about the astral vehicle, which I know it's possible to astral travel and all kinds of that, versus the person in spirit form, what's the difference for people to know what the difference is? Not just so much appearance, but to me, I've never considered that it could be the astral vehicle, but for people that don't know the difference.
um, the soul is entirely non-physical and spiritual. So is spirit.
Mhm.
But the astral vehicle is attached to the physical body, and it has some affinity to gravity.
Oh,
It
I
is
didn't
it
know
is
that.
non-physical, but it has affinity to gravity. And astral travelers will tell you that if they notice when you're out there,
Mhm.
if you're sitting perfectly still, let's say hovering above your house, you can find yourself very slowly descending towards the ground. It's
Mhm.
very slow, and if you're high up, you'll never notice. Close to something, then you can feel that you're slowly settling. And then, of course, you can think yourself places that outmaneuvers that slow gravity.
I
You
have a
can,
question for you.
yeah.
So this just occurred to me. Now, do you think, just in your opinion, that the reason why the astral vehicle is it can be affected by gravity, is that because a part of who we are as human beings, like we carry heavier emotions, heavier thoughts, heavier things like that that could cause us to be more prone to gravity, versus I know that the soul is the true essence, it's, I mean, the true energy, the true light. Is that why you think, or is there another reason?
It could have something to do with that, because thoughts
Hmm.
have an electrical component to it, is an energy attached to it, an energy that just might have some physical component to it.
Hmm.
Because I know it can be measured on electrical instruments as electrons flying across wires and being detected on scopes and stuff. So you can see the effects of electricity, and you can see the electrons when they go and do their stuff, so things show up on your telephone or anywhere. That may have a part of it, but I doubt that it's got that much of an effect. I think there is something inherently rooted in the astral body that has affinity to gravity.
Okay.
or the earth.
Now that's
But I
really
don't know,
I
otherwise, I
have the
don't know how to explain it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Augie. Go ahead, and I
Yeah,
apologize. Just to remind everybody and you that I have a bit of a delay, so it'll seem like a pause if I start talking. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I don't know if I can think of any other reason that why it would have affinity to gravity, and then it's just an inherent quality in the astral body that is has an affinity to the physical body for one thing, and also maybe Earth itself.
Yeah, what I was going to add is, well, we all know we have that silver cord that attaches. Like I remember you telling me even about the pictures now when you talked about the Tesla coil, but going back, we have the silver cord that attaches us to our body. So people that are actually, and people, you can train yourself to do this, to astral travel, that you have that assurance that you're never ever going to completely leave your body. You've always got that tethering, anchoring cord. And I remember you telling me, I think one of the first times you did astral traveling, that you snapped back into your body really quickly. I think it was you or someone you knew of, and you said it was actually quite painful.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but
Yeah, so maybe
it's
that's it, right? Because we're already still attached to the physical.
yeah, but in a case like what the guy in France, though, when people die, that cord
Is severed.
severs from the physical body,
Hmm.
and that astral body has no way to get back to the body again. But
Hmm.
otherwise, for astral travelers, you can get out there, and if you look down, you can see yourself a cord coming out of the solar plexus, or some people say they see it coming out of the back of the head. I've never seen that, but some people say they can see it there. You are attached
Yes.
from the physical body to the astral body somehow, and you can travel there. There is some distance limitations on that, but it is very far.
Hmm.
that
Yes.
that cord is very strong,
Hmm. Yeah.
and when you're
That,
close to the body it could be that thick, but
that
if you travel across the country it can be so tiny that you may not hardly even see it.
but it's always there, like, you, because I know I've had people ask me this, even like, well, how do I know I'm going to get back to my body? That's your assurance. Like, you know, you're always connected to your body if you're breathing. And like you said, once we pass from this lifetime, that cord is severed. So I wonder if
Mhm.
that's what makes the difference. It'd be interesting to see some research on this.
Yeah, and yeah, the silvery cord is one way where you will always make it back home.
Hmm.
Home being the body.
Yes.
But there's another way, and that is there is this safety valve in the universe, and that is that when you could be you could be in India right now
Hmm.
observing something there, and you want to get back. All you have to do is to think yourself back by visualizing in your mind the physical body, and you're back.
True. The thing
Well,
is,
not quite that fast. It could take a few seconds to get back, but you are there within seconds.
the thing is so many human beings, and this is part of my thing I love to teach, is they do not understand that thought, emotion, especially, but thought especially too, can affect some everything in your life. The way you think, what you believe in, what you perceive, and you can really shape your reality and the life that you live, even just by changing your thoughts. And people,
Yeah.
how many people do you hear that'll say, oh, I don't care what word I use, they're just words. Words have no meaning. Words have huge meaning, and people just don't get that, do they?
No, because your subconscious mind is always listening to you. I don't care if you talk in your sleep, the
Yes.
subconscious mind is listening. And
Yes.
it takes everything for face value.
Mhm.
When you do something dumb and you say, oh, God, I'm an idiot.
Mhm.
Okay, the subconscious mind says, okay,
You're
I
an idiot.
know, I know, don't have to say it again. I'm an idiot, so I'm going to do something stupid again.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And they're literal, like quite literal. And whatever you put out there, or what people don't realize is they'll say, oh God, I hate going to the dentist. I really don't want to go to the dentist. Or it could be work. I don't want to go to work. It really, oh, I got this big presentation coming up. I do not want to go. Either they can think themselves into messing up. But the one thing I've noticed is when people really dread something, So a lot of people come down with an illness, could be a car accident, could be anything like that because the subconscious hears you. Oh, you don't want to go to work. Well, let's
That's
make that
right.
happen.
The subconscious mind reaches into the quantum and arranges for things to happen so you don't have to go to work again.
Mhm. And
Well,
people don't realize this. And I've had this conversation with my own partner because certain words he'll use, and I'll say, that's really maybe not the right word. Well, they're just words. No, they're not words. Everything is energy. If you want to break it down to sentences, everything is energy. One of the laws is energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but it can be transferred from one place to another. But the thing is, our words and our thoughts and our emotions are energy. And I believe they're some of the most powerful tools, if you will, that we have as human beings that we don't realize we have that kind of empowerment, if you will.
yeah, yeah. And that's where this should be taught in school.
Yes, yes. Meditation too.
Yeah. There are schools in Japan right now that is starting to take 10 minutes in the morning and do a meditation before they go to class.
Mhm. I love it.
And they are having phenomenal results with it. So this is, yeah, absolutely something that should be taught. And if you're a fanatical Christian, call it something different. Call it quiet contemplation, and then they'll do it. But
Mhm.
if you call it meditation, of course, they run for the hill because they know Satan is living in there.
Oh, I know. I know. Oh, God, we could do a whole show just on that. I do want to give a shout out. We've got one of our regular supporters here of my shows, especially in the UPRN, Zach Man. And I
Yeah.
just read his comment. Of course, my phone twisted on me. He just said at Augie, warmer weather here in Arizona, my friend. Next thing you know, we'll be in the triple digits. LOL. Sure, rub it in, Zach. Because he's in Arizona like you are.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, it's got a triple digit. It probably is in southern Arizona where I am at then.
Oh, he is. He's there. So actually, I'm in northwestern Ontario, right at, if you look at the Great Lakes, Lake Superior, it almost looks like a wolf head, if you will. We're almost Thunder Bay, right on the shores where you would imagine an eye to be if you were looking at a side profile. So I always tell people for reference, if you're aware of where Minneapolis, Minnesota is, which I know you know where it is, you used to live there.
Hmm.
I'm about 6 hours north from there and about 35 minutes away from the Minnesota border. But we've actually had, once again, last year when I had to move in January, it's usually about -50. There's no difference Fahrenheit or Celsius. And it was beautiful. I was so grateful for that. And then this winter too. It's been beautiful. We really haven't had an overabundance of snow or cold. Things are melting already. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
So, you know what, Augie, we were talking about a couple things we could talk about. And I had mentioned if we get there that we could talk about what we originally were sort of throwing around, what happens when you die and things like that. But you know what? I think it's really important with the climate that's going on in the world right now. Let's talk a little bit about, who's behind this? Where is this coming from? We may be a little careful with some of the wording, folks, and if we are, we'll either spell it out for you or we'll explain what it means. But I know who's behind it. I know you know who's behind it, but I'm going to give you the floor. Where do we even start with this?
Well, gosh, I know you could attack that one from many different angles, but I think there's going to be a lot of people,
Hmm.
hundreds of millions at
Hmm.
least, that's going to be leaving this place this year
Yes, I agree.
because they did something stupid.
And we know what that is.
Yeah.
We know for that we won't be able to say that word, but it starts
Yeah.
with a P and has
That's
two.
because they trusted in government,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they trusted that the remedy for this global disease that the government is touting is going to save them.
Hmm.
It is totally different. It is designed to destroy your immune system.
Hmm.
So next time after you take that remedy and then you will get sick sometime, let's say you get pneumonia,
Hmm.
because it destroys your immune system. You have no ability yourself to fight the pneumonia.
Yeah, I've tried to explain this, and as nurses, we're obviously conditioned to believe that getting one of these remedies is, it's recommended, it needs to be done. I actually, knowing what I know now, and I'm not an anti-remedier, just believe in pro-truth and pro-transparency. And knowing what I know now, I probably never ever would have had it done for my children. But what I will say is my eldest, when he had a remedy that's given in seventh grade here for hepatitis B, he developed all the symptoms of hepatitis B except the yellowing of the skin or jaundice. Very ill for about 3 weeks. My pediatrician actually wanted to hospitalize him. And I said, why? I'm a nurse. I said, you know who I am. I used to work with you. He's safer at home. But he actually wrote us a letter and said that nobody in our home was to ever get one of those remedies again, ever, ever. Because of that reaction, I have my youngest son is under the autism spectrum. Now, that wasn't, if you will, I'm writing a book on this, but I believe with autism that it's genetic, and that with some kind of assault to the immune system, it flicks the switch on, if you will. Some people, it's with the remedy. Some some it could be just common cold, or there's nobody's ever sure what flicks that switch on at most times. I believe with my son, he was 4 weeks old and he got meningitis, and he almost died. And after that, not that you ever know what your young little baby is going to be like, but my son was never the same after that. There was a real marked difference in him. But
Hmm.
getting back to our subject here at hand, that's why I started to study these remedies, if you will, because and the more I started to study them, the more I started to really learn. And I realized it's like opening Pandora's box, but people need to educate themselves about what is in this, why it's being done. Maybe we should start there, because you and I, we talk about the cabal. So with the
Well,
cabal,
yeah.
you might have to let our listeners know who are the cabal.
Those people, they could be anybody of great influence within government, within corporations, or within other organizations that is well funded, so they don't have to go to work 9 to 5 it for someone else. They have time to sit around and think about how they can profit from it and how they can feather their own nest at the expense of others. And this particular genre that we're going through right now, I believed it started back in 1992 at the Earth Climate Summit in
Okay.
Rio de Janeiro.
Mhm.
That's when they decided that, yeah, Earth is heating up. We got to do something. We got to find some way to make sure that we're not going to cook here by, the end of the, by 2000. And then in 1994, at the Earth Population Summit in Cairo, Egypt, that's when they decided that we need to decrease the population of Earth to
Mhm.
an ideal population of 800 million people. There is very little, if anything, in writing on that, but there were people that wrote about it that were there.
Mhm.
And they said that there were several countries, I think about 18, 20 countries, that stayed behind at the meeting because the meeting did not speak of the exact methods of doing it. But
Mhm.
in one of the reports attached to the how should we say that in a diplomatic way? There's a UN document that deals with an agenda and a number. And
Funny.
in there, they speak of the fact that we need to reduce the population of Earth to 800 million people, with whatever necessary mean is to be used.
Mhm.
Whatever that
Okay.
can go to quite a length.
Mhm.
So what we're seeing now is that they are touting a remedy that will take care of that.
I also believe this, and I've spoken out about this many times, and I'm not telling people what to do. What I'm saying is you should always do your research. You don't even have to trust us. The only thing I always say is please don't use Google because that's part of the Silicon Valley, which is part of this, I believe. Use a different search engine and many, if anything, another avenues to do your research. But um, when you start looking at all of this, we can even back up to October 2019. There was, and you can find this on YouTube, you can find it anywhere. It's called Event 201. And when you look at Event 201 and you look at the video, and it was funded by Bill Gates, the World Health Organization was there, the CDC representatives were there, Johns Hopkins University, which is also tied in with this, and many of the so-called experts from health organizations around the world. And they decided to have a mock pandemic. And of all things, they chose, we'll just call it CB, what we're going through right now. And the only thing that differed was that it supposedly it was caused by a pig, but it originated in Wuhan, China. Everything that we have seen, everything that we have experienced, they covered in this mock pandemic. If you watch the video without any previous knowledge and you see a clip, you would believe that they had filmed that probably a few hours ago. Am I right, Augie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of that, though, that it's, yeah, we're told that it originates in Wuhan, but it really didn't. They traces back to North Carolina in a laboratory there where they created the genetically modified flu.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't make any more deadly, but it make it more uh, transmittable.
Yes.
And that was stolen or taken from there and moved
Mm-hmm.
to Wuhan when it became illegal in the United States to do any more research.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when Fauci and his crew, they developed it there, and it came from there, and that was the home from where it was transmitted to the rest of the world.
I don't know if you've seen anything on this, but apparently the World Military Games were over in China around Wuhan in October of 2019. And I know our military, the Canadians, and I believe many others that came back from there were extremely, extremely ill. This wasn't widely publicized, but I know that the flight that they came back on was quarantined because they had some very strange respiratory illness that
Hmm.
apparently went all around these military games. So it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's been there for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're hell bent on making sure that the population is drained. And the way they're, we can ask ourselves, there's all kinds of research from the really credible scientists, neuroscience and medical doctors that has looked at the virus and said, there's nothing here except the flu. And there are hundreds, no, actually 100,000 doctor coalition around the world that has come forward and said this is a scam, but
Mm-hmm.
governments are not listening. And
Well,
I
especially,
found out why they're not listening.
mm-hmm. Okay.
There's a couple of examples. The president of actually an African country, and I shouldn't really say
I
which
know.
one, and he came forward and said that we tricked them. We sent in samples to be tested for the disease
Mm-hmm.
from a goat, one a papaya,
Mm-hmm.
and from other things that had no way of having the disease,
Mm-hmm.
but they came back positive.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that is doing the test are lying through their teeth. Now, on the top of that is that the president of Madagascar, he came and he said that somebody from the International Monetary Fund and Bill Gates organization, they came to him and offered him $20 million if he would allow them to put poison into their vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
He turned him down, and then he talked about it. course, nothing in the US where everything is censored, but other places in the world there are newspaper articles about this. Also, there was a president of a previous Russian republic. I believe it could have been Georgia. I'm drawing a blank on it for right now. But he came forward and said he was offered $940 million by the International Monetary Fund and the other guys to, if he promised to shut down the country, make everybody wear a mask, and guarantee that they will be given the vaccine.
The remedy.
He took the money,
Mm-hmm.
and later on he turned on him and exposed it. Of course,
Well, there
nothing in the
is
US about it.
a president. Got to remember to say remedy. From Africa. This has been in the last week. Sasha Stone has actually spoke out quite a bit about this. If you look him up, you'll find out much more about him. He's a real activist about a lot of what's going on right now. And this president came out. It was one of the African countries. I forget which one. And
I think it was Ghana.
Pardon?
I think that was latest one was Ghana.
Thank you. Yes. And he had always said, no, absolutely not. We're not going along with this. We refuse to do it. And miraculously, he's passed away of completely great health of a supposed heart attack.
Yeah.
And there should be no reason why there was no illness. I mean, yeah, can that happen? Yes, it can happen. Just seems very, very unusually strange that this happened.
Yeah.
And he was the one that said, no, we're not doing this. Mm-mm.
They have a way of doing that, so there's no trace to anything of the cause. Just ask Hillary; she'll tell you all about that.
Yeah, just look up the body count. I guess the thing is this isn't something new what we're talking about. There's a great film series out there put out by a Dutch female documentarian, and the first one is called The Fall of the Cabal. And it starts out with the first episode is things that make you go, hmm. You won't be able to find it on YouTube, but you can find it anywhere else if you use an alternative search engine. You might even be able to find it on Google. It was very positive, very uplifting by the end of it. There's nothing really a lot that I learned that was new, except a lot of information about what went on in in Holland that I didn't know with the royal family. And there's also a clip there that I really urge people to take a look at this. She doesn't put any of the nitty gritty, but she does bring up adrenochrome. People think this is crazy that it's not involved. It is. She brings up SRA. You just have to look up the initials. I don't need to bring it up what it is, but a lot of these elites are subscribing to that. And there was a Turkish journalist who was visiting the UK, and he was outside Buckingham Palace, and he was filming the daily marching of the Royal Guard going by. And his video happened to capture from the top window of Buckingham Palace a teenage boy, completely naked. You see these sheets tied together come over the window, and this boy trying to escape, and he falls. Nobody has found out what happened to him. It was denied by Buckingham Palace. It was denied, I even believe, by Scotland Yard that it ever happened. Well, how'd you get the video? And I can also attest to the fact that Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip visited here in Canada a few years back, and a couple decades actually, and they took 7 boys and 3 girls, First Nations children, out for a picnic. They came back without the children. No questions were asked. And those children's bodies were found a year later. So this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. And then, I just hate that term conspiracy theory started really after the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
Because to me, I think it's truth seeking. And when you start to hear this enough, so many people, and I'm finding, especially where I live in Canada, at least in the US, you guys had an election to stir up things for people to really start waking up like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
I have to say, probably 80% of Canadians are asleep. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. What's going on with this illness right now in Canada? We are all pretty well back on lockdown like it was at the beginning in March. I was speaking about this months ago about these, we'll call them CV jails or internment camps. And people thought it was crazy. Well, you may not be aware of this, but if you're traveling into Canada, you can be a Canadian citizen, you can be a visitor. You're coming over on a plane. You have to have a test within 3 days, has to be a certain test at your own expense. When you come into the airport, you have to have another test. And while you await the results, you are made to go to one of these jails, I'm going to call them, because the hotels don't even know that they're housing people here. They go in through a back entrance. You're fed slop worse than prison, and it's at all your own expense. And you're threatened, I believe, with it says $750,000 fine, or I think it's a couple of years in jail, or both if you leave. And yeah, this is what's happening. And you're not allowed to speak to anybody. You're not allowed to tell your family where you are. You are not allowed, and if, I can't prove this. This is just sort of what's come out, that if you do break the rules, that they just keep extending your stay there at your expense. And people have provided bills of sale that they have paid for 3 days, depending on what city and what hotel that they're at. That it is between $750 and $2,000 at your own expense. You're not allowed to lock the door. The locks have been removed. They say it's for your safety. You're not allowed to leave your room. And there are women that have been sexually assaulted by the guards that they've hired coming in there, and there's not a thing they can do about it. And we're not exempt. I mean, there are things like this going on all over, but we don't get to hear about it, right?
No, nothing anywhere
The thing
except
is, oh,
shows like yours.
pardon?
Except shows like yours.
Yes, and the thing I wanted to add with the Fall of the Cabal is she's done a second series, and I really strongly urge you to watch it, because it goes back to the history of when this started. And believe it or not, according to her research, this started actually 1,000 years um, before the birth of Christ. And they go through the whole, she goes through the whole history, how it developed, why it developed, how they've kept it silent, how they've kept it alive, even though it was tried to get nipped in the bud many times over history. And the thing that bothers me is a lot of the people that are at the top, we don't hear their names. We don't see their names. You have no idea. You may think that you're seeing the top level by certain names. It goes much, much,
Yeah.
much higher than that, right?
Yeah, I was. We were actually talking about that on the conference that I was just came off of here, and then we were talking about who's in charge, who's giving the first order,
Mm-hmm,
who's at the top of the food chain,
mm-hmm.
and we kind of agreed on the fact there was many researchers here that was talking about this, and I think the ultimate order of what is to be done comes from off the planet.
Really? No, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, there is probably the way I have to use the word probably, even though there's some evidence to this actually, but there is probably somebody out there that was here hundreds of thousands of years ago, or possibly millions of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they want their planet back. But they got a problem. They got
Where
7 billion people here, so they got to get rid of the people in order to come back so they can take charge. And they are not like us. They are a little bit different physiology. They don't need as much oxygen. They need a different atmosphere, a different environment. So that is why we are now doing our hell bent on destroying the environment and also destroying the oxygen level. We're cutting down the rainforest, so there is very little less actually replenishment of oxygen, and this is a global thing. It's not just in South America. They're doing it everywhere, India and all over the place. They are making tillable ground instead of rainforest.
they're terraforming, then, in other
Uh,
words.
Terraforming Earth for another species.
So what are they going to do with the human beings, I guess, that survive this? And I guess what will we go back to being, is it theorized a slave race, basically, like how it was? And I know this sounds crazy. People are like,
Yeah.
this is nuts, but Mm-hmm.
Well, think of it this way. Even the futurists, they are telling us that in, let's say, 20 years from now, well over half the jobs in the world will be done by robots.
True.
2050
Mm-hmm.
or beyond, close to all or 75% of the jobs in the world will be done by robots.
Mm-hmm.
What in the world do they need people for? So get rid of them. At the
True.
same time, bring it down to 800 million people, as the plan was, the United Nations document. And then everybody is happy, as long as they are one of their people, which of course they probably get the saline shot instead of the regular vaccine. So they
I've
can
seen
do,
that. Well, we got to call it a remedy,
yeah,
but I have seen that actually with many supposed world leaders or influential leaders. It's either A, an empty syringe,
yeah.
B, either saline or some have theorized vitamin B shot. I know vitamin B shots, it's called cyanocobalamin and it's usually red colored, but I'm sure there's something else they're using. Or I've actually seen with Kamala Harris, I believe it was her shot, because I remember watching it, and the person that injected her pulled the needle out and they bent, looked like they were bending it on the arm of the chair, and I'm like, what the heck are they doing? Being a nurse, I know you're using a sharp, you should be getting rid of that. Somebody blew it up. It was a rubber syringe. It just bent over. I have seen others like those, and you can get these from movies or whatever. You put it on the skin, it looks like it's a needle. Well, the needle just goes in whenever you put pressure on the flesh. So yeah, there's a lot of people faking that. I definitely can attest to that for sure, for sure, for sure.
I saw a video of a guy that got a hold of one of those, and he took, it was about that long, the capsule, and then the needle was about, this long, and he put his finger on top of the needle and it collapsed right into the needle, and then he brought it back. This is, it says, how the elite get the vaccine,
Mm-hmm.
because the needle collapses and there is just a little fluid in there that's recycling itself back into the chamber. It doesn't go through the needle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the whole thing is a scam.
Yeah, we just got to remember remedy because we're, where we are. I guess what the thing is I really don't know what we can do though. Like how I was just mentioning to Joe, I forgot to give him a shout out. Joe Montaldo, the owner of EPRN, he's also our producer. He makes my job easy. He does all the hard work behind the scenes so we can bring this programming to you. So thank you, Joe. But I was telling him there's a brand new documentary out there that somebody sent me. Let me see if I can find the name of it. And it was actually really excellent. It's about this Shasta, California, small county that is fighting back. Give me 1 second. I will find the name of it because if you can watch it, I strongly suggest it. It's excellent because they are going, like they said, to try and do this, you know, federally across the country or even statewide or province wide or however you look at the way your country breaks up. It's a lot, but to start at the local level and hope it'll spread. And they're showing what they're doing. I'm just going to find the name in here. And I thought it was well done. And I haven't seen how it turns out, but it looks like they were making a lot of ground. Okay, so the main person in here, his name is Carlos Zapata, and it is from Shasta, California. I'm going to find it on YouTube because this is where it's airing. It's called Red, White, and Blueprint. Episode 1 is called We the People. So well done, regular people, and they're showing how they've been shut right out of council meetings. People have been caught on hot mics when there's
Yeah.
been somebody active in the community speaking out. It was a woman. One of the council people, it was a woman herself, saying she's crazy. Like, just things like this. And I think what people forget is, government is elected by the people, or should be, or we believe it is. I'm
They're
starting to,
selected by the people. Yeah.
but I don't think that that's what's been happening for many, many, many
Yeah.
years. Just, and a lot of people still to this day, how many of you run into that believe that there still was no deception whatsoever in the US election when it's clear as a nose on your face?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The disinformation machine has been very, very effective.
Mm-hmm.
because when you sit down and watch TV, you're automatically going into a state of mind is somewhat similar to hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And you are then, whatever you get on the screen, first of all, is full of subliminal advertising and subliminal messages
Mm-hmm.
that tell you to believe what you see because that is the truth. And of course, 60 cycles per second, that is the worst frequency that you could have
Mm-hmm.
medically for coming from the TV. But they've been very successful. We got to remember something also that the head of the CIA under Ronald Reagan, he said in an interview one time that when we wake up one day and find that everything the American public believe is false, we know the disinformation program is working.
Well, that's just it, because whether you want to call it red pilled or just waking up, I never had this issue myself, but everybody is different. But I find a lot of people have such difficulty coping. They go through a lot of depression, a lot of anger, and the main thing they say is, I'm so angry, or I'm just in such shock, disbelief, depression over the fact that everything I believed, everything I thought was all a lie. And
Yeah.
it is, until you start taking a look and you start digging. And I always tell people, and I have great respect for people that do this, you don't have to trust what we're saying. You don't have to believe anything we're saying. But if it gives you just a little bit of food for thought, or it just gives you a little bit of a nagging inkling thought that maybe you're starting to hear this a little bit more, take a look for yourself. Because the second part I was going to say, this documentarian has done The Fall of the Cabal Part 2, and she's done another 10 episodes. I'm just about through it. And I love the way that she does these films, because she'll provide you with the resources. She explains where she's coming from, how she arrived at what she did. And but she doesn't give it all to you to the point that it's like dropping a ton of bricks on you. She gives you food for thought. She gives you a place to start, but she strongly encourages you throughout both series, please start doing your own homework, start doing your own homework, start doing your own research, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
I guess my point is, because Zach brings up a good point. I'm going to read a few of his comments here. He said, surprisingly, my mother and I know his mother is in the healthcare field, despite her conflicting political views, and we should remind people, because that's an important point, this has nothing to do with politics. It doesn't matter whether you're Democratic, Republican, liberal, or conservative, independent, whatever the name of your party may be, this has nothing to do. It does, but it doesn't. It goes so much deeper. He says, we are not planning on getting the remedy that starts with a V. And then he added this is the part that I think is so important, because I believe we're already in the first stages of this within Canada. They're talking about the remedy, or the V shot, passports now. Looks like my travel plans will be changing this year. Now, the point I wanted to add to this, I'm doing a lot of crafting right now, and I've really been getting into resin. I don't use marijuana, but I don't judge people for it. But a lot of people have said maybe you should start making some pieces like that, like a tray or whatever. And I was looking for something like that and went to a store I've never been to in my city. He actually asked me if I was from out of town. And I said, no. He goes, most people that never been here are from out of town. I said, I just don't use this stuff. And I started talking to him, and he was very angry about the fact about being a local business, and he has a huge store. Like, he says, I could have had people in by appointment. I would have had perfect contact tracing, whatever. I was shut down. He said, yeah, just down the block, big box store can have, 400 or 500 people in, which was true. So I started going a little further and a little further with him and sharing things with him. And at the end of it, I said, just so you know, I'm not crazy. Not once did he say I was crazy. He was very interested. But he was realizing a lot of the information that he had believed, even just the little bit I had shared, really didn't match with what he believed. I said, I've got two photos for you. I said, our prime minister, for example, I'm going to show you a picture of Fidel Castro, and I'm going to show you a picture of him at the same age. And I went into that story. And when you see those pictures, if you look them up, you'll fall off your chair. It's right down to the smirk. They look like identical twins. Now, again, you may think, who cares who his father is, right? Well, Cuba's was it's a little looser now, but communist country. When you've got ties to this, or all these leaders too, a lot of them have a bloodline tracing back to, what is it, 13 families, Augie?
Yeah.
Mhm. It all goes that deep. Now, when you start talking about these passports, to me, if you have the remedy that starts with a V, how that works is they take a strand of what they're giving you the remedy for, whether it's a killed strand, which means that it's not supposed to be active, or a tiny little piece of the active agent that you're getting this remedy for. They incubate it, and that's what you're injected with. It is supposed to coerce your immune system into creating antibodies so that if you encounter this organism, you're not supposed to get it. That's not quite how they work once you dig really deep and open Pandora's box, knowing what I
Yeah.
know now. With this particular remedy, with what we're going through, they have never identified the agent that really causes it,
Right.
breaking it down. Second of all, if this is truly what they're putting it out there as, you should be able to not have to wear a mask anymore, social distance. And the other part that I just see read over, trying to make this remedy since the last SARS infection many years ago, and even beyond that, before that, they always used ferrets because ferrets have an immune system very similar to ours. I know you know all this, Augie. But the thing is that anytime they've made this, they can do something with animals that they can't do with human beings until now, which I believe were the ferrets in this. But what they've done is the ferrets had the remedy, showed a beautiful autoimmune response, lots of antibodies, a whole bit, but they can put the ferrets under a challenge. What that means is that they can be exposed to the agent that they received the remedy for. And every single time, without fail, the bodies would go of the ferrets would go into something called a cytokine storm, meaning the animal's immune system attacked the animal itself.
Yeah.
They ended up with serious autoimmune issues, brain damage, major organ damage. All the animals have always had to be destroyed. That's why those they have it's never made the market. Now, for those that may not realize this, with this particular remedy, that was all skipped. Second of all, one of the companies involved with this has never even made a medication this type for human beings before. This is their first foray into this. Now, that's just the top of the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the more you dig,
Yeah.
so where
Yeah.
do
And
you?
on top of that, too, this remedy, which is the mRNA, and what that does is that a portion of it attaches itself to the genetic code in the area,
Yeah.
which produces the enzyme that will give you the immunity.
Mhm.
But when it attaches it, it blocks that and the code in the genetic code that creates the enzyme. So you don't have any immunity coming from that area of the genetic code.
Mhm.
So next time people get sick, they're going down unless they can keep themselves healthy, then they're okay.
Mhm.
Maybe I should mention something about how you can stay healthy all the time and never get sick.
I know what you're going to say, but do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get on a positive note. Before you do, though, I want to mention we've got Shady D here. Sorry about that, Shady D. She said, finally found you. She said, communist countries do not allow religion. And I guess she's going back. I guess she was talking about, we were talking about Russia and stuff, talking about
Yeah.
removing religion. But anyways, let's talk about what people can do, because we're already well over an hour here, so that we can let people know, because I always like to sort of get into something more positive, because there are things we can do.
Yeah, there is things. And there's something that when we know we have no immune system,
Mhm.
what do? We got to make sure that we don't get sick. And most of the time, sickness come from outside bacteria or virus.
Mhm.
Though
Yeah.
if you drink poison, yeah, I can see if you drink, whatever, if you have eat a lot of crappy food with poisons in it, and then yeah, you can get sick from that too.
Hmm.
And I don't think this particular method work for that if you're if you drink lead, that's gonna go bad on you. But there's things you can do to if you let's say you get a virus. So let's say you are in an area where somebody has a really bad cold,
Hmm.
and if you got that cold, got it in your lungs, if you had no immune system, you can get pneumonia and things will go really bad for you. But there is things you can do. Let me back up to 1931, where Dr. Otto Warburg got the Nobel Prize for discovering that no bacteria or no virus can live in a heavy oxygenated and alkaline environment.
Hmm.
So if we are in an alkaline environment, if we keep our pH value of the body up, I would say above 8.
Hmm.
7 is neutral. 7.4, I guess, is neutral for the humans, somewhere around there. I would say keep it up at 8 or above.
Hmm.
Then it is so alkaline that it will kill off virus and bacteria. If you're not able to do that, let's say you keep it at 7, or Christ, if even if you're down to 5, there is still things you can do. And that is something that the martial art master told me decades ago. And he said, you can do this. If you do this, you will never be sick in your life. And I've done that thing, and I really never been sick
Hmm.
much, except for hangovers. But
That's self-induced
yeah,
illness. We worked hard to get, so you got to enjoy
yeah,
it. Not
I
really.
earned those. But the thing is, he said, take 20 deep breaths, exhale,
Hmm.
keep doing it until you get dizzy.
Okay.
Then stay slightly dizzy for 3 to 5 minutes. If you do that once a day, he says, when you breathe that much, you get dizzy because you have an excess amount of oxygen in the blood.
Hmm.
So when your blood is saturated with oxygen, that blood gets everywhere in the body, and it snuggles up with the oxygen next to virus and bacteria and kill them.
Okay.
So now, if you do this every day, you won't have any bacteria or virus in your body. So the lacking of immune system will not affect you because there is nothing to fight.
What about somebody, though, for example, that has something like COPD, or people may know it as emphysema? Because I know even with those people, you have to be very careful. Say if you're on oxygen, you most human beings without any lung disease have an oxygen saturation between, well, 90 is kind of low, usually with no health issues between 95 and 100%. But when
Mhm.
somebody has emphysema or COPD, what happens is there's a very delicate balance between carbon monoxide and oxygen. They actually need to stay around 84 to 85%, because if you gave them too much oxygen, believe it or not, it reverses the actual auto drive to breathe. So say for somebody like that, I guess they'd probably have to work with somebody that was familiar with this, because you wouldn't want to give them too much oxygen.
I am not familiar with that at all. That's there's no medical advice here. This is something. First of all, my martial art master told me, and I've been doing it. I know it works for me,
Mhm.
but of course, it won't work for anybody else because the government says it does. So they would never lie to
I
you.
think what I would suggest is to probably, if you had a pre-existing, and again, this isn't medical advice. I mean, we all breathe, right? But to be careful with that. But there is other things you can do. Like what about colloidal silver? Like,
Well, it's phenomenal. That also have very much the same effect. I drink colloidal silver because I make it here. I make it by the gallon for about probably a couple of cents.
mhm.
So that is something that you really need to find a generator. You can get those generators out there for about 20, 30, $40, and then you're all set.
Where would somebody look for that, Augie? Because now that I'm thinking of that, I think I know where to get one, but just so I know, because I think, you can buy it. But especially I know up here in Canada, those things aren't always regulated. Anything within the homeopathic, naturopathic isn't always regulated. So you may not know what, if you make it yourself and you educate yourself, there's enough stuff out there. You can figure out how to make it. Like you said, it's pennies on the gallon versus buying
Yeah.
it because it's
Mhm.
expensive.
Yeah, and it's pretty simple to make. You just run. It's a form of electrolysis off of two silver rod,
Mm-hmm.
and it just does itself. You just put the rod, hook it up to electricity, and put it in there, and leave it for a few hours. Come back and look at it, and then once it starts forming a little bit of deposit at the tail, I mean, at the bottom end of the rods,
Mm-hmm.
chances are it's done.
Yeah. And Dr. Judy Mikovits, who has been villainized in the literature, in the mainstream media, and everywhere, she knows her stuff. Believe me, especially if you've got any medical background or you understand that stuff, she knows her stuff, and I believe every word she's saying. She wears a mask like that. I was just watching a recent talk that she had, and she has a special mask made with silver colloidal in it because she was born, she said, with chronic obstructive lung disease. And she was talking about the experience she had on the plane. She was actually flying to a couple conferences to educate people. She actually worked with Fauci many years ago, and because she spoke out, this is what's happened to her. They tried to make her out to be a quack. She's been arrested and no charges filed. And she actually has a documentary out there called Plandemic, which is quite fascinating to watch,
Mhm.
not from a positive perspective, but very informative. And I guess she wore her mask on the plane, and it was in California. She names the city that this happened, and the flight attendant honed in on her and said, "If you don't wear the paper mask, you're getting off the plane." And she tried to explain why. And what people don't realize too is it's EO, I forget what it's called. You can look it up. It's a sterilization agent that they use for most things, including the masks, including everything else. It's one of the most toxic chemicals on the planet. It's in
Yeah.
the mask when you're breathing it. And she tried to explain this. They told her she had to get off the plane. And she talks about her experience and she asked them to call the sheriff. And they wouldn't call the sheriff. They had security remove her. They hurt her. She said, no, these are her words, not mine. She said she was roughed up. Her arm is still messed up. And she said where they took her off the plane was out on a back part of the airport where there were no people around or anything. And she said she got roughed up quite a bit and she wasn't allowed to fly. And this is all because she had a mask that was much more protective than the paper one they were giving her.
Yeah.
To me, I've often been saying this year that I think it's the death of common sense. Because to me, I don't understand. Haven't been out to eat, but if you wanted to go out to eat here, anyways, you had to wear your mask, sit down at the table. You could take your mask off to eat, and then you had to put the mask back on, apparently on the plane too. And when the meal comes, if you get a meal, you can take it off to eat. Otherwise, you've got to wear it. People, my God, like, do you think a virus is that smart? Oh, they're eating. We'll just take this is time for our coffee break, everybody. No, but viruses all head to the back now. Everybody's eating, mask is off. Seriously. Like, I
Yeah.
don't understand where,
It
and
is
I,
totally idiotic. And here is that book that maybe people want to consider looking at, the Colloidal Silver Manual. This writes about everything that anybody need to know about colloidal silver. It's a big one,
Mhm.
but boy oh boy does it have information in it.
Who writes it, Augie? Because I'm going to write that down, the colloidal silver.
It's the colloidal silver actually the ultimate colloidal silver manual, and it is by natural health journalist Steve Barwick.
Okay, how do we spell Barvik?
Barwick.
Okay. I'll put colloidal silver so I remember colloidal silver manual. Um, there's lots of things you can do. For example, And this always floored me. And again, we don't learn everything, even if you get your degree in nursing or whatever. I mean, there's so many illnesses in the body and everything else to learn about. But when I would, and you know this yourself, Augie, being my friend, when I would get ill, especially something respiratory right away, and I'd have it for 6 to 8 weeks. Always. I could not kick it in the butt.
No.
But I started doing some research and started seeing some of the natural stuff that they were using. This is not medical advice. This is just something I did myself, but I started putting myself on vitamin D. I know I am low on vitamin D. I've had my blood tested, so this is not something somebody should just run out and do. If this was done through my physician, I knew that it was low. I also started taking vitamin C, and I had zinc on hand, and I actually have had two things pop up for me in the past year. Uh, Looks like it's going to break into full blown, whatever you want to call it. I've started doing that. I actually bought tonic water. I know it has quinine in it. It's not a lot, but it has some in there. Now, I don't know if it was just luck or what, but I was only sick for a day, 2 days, and back on my way. So I guess what my point is, there's many natural things that we can do to shore up the body. Maybe what I might get you to mention too, people may not understand what an alkaline diet is, Augie. Do you think you could give them a little bit of information on that?
I think, yeah, I can, because I can only tell them what I am doing. I try to, it doesn't work every day, but I try to, as much as possible, to have a bowl of oatmeal every day. And that is raw oatmeal. I don't cook it, because what happened to the food when you cook it? You kill it, right? Then
Mhm,
you kill the enzymes, and the body need all the enzymes to stay healthy.
mhm,
So I eat raw oatmeal, and I put a little bit of milk on it and some fruit on it, strawberry or whatever I have in the fridge. And that seems to be a good diet for me every day as a snack around noon. And
mhm,
then I am down to one meal a day. I never eat breakfast.
mhm,
And now they eat a lot of salads. My dinner could be just a big salad,
mhm,
and that works fine for me. But if you eat a lot of green stuff, and especially maybe red stuff is good for the blood, and different things. So peppers and things, I just can't handle the peppers. They just shrink wrap my teeth. So I just can't do that.
mhm,
But I take them in capsules. I take a capsule of the red pepper every day, because once in, I just get to the stomach, I can handle it. But that also, the pepper, that helps me keep the blood vessels clean.
mhm. So does the oatmeal, because the oatmeal is almost, I know they've done many studies on this for people that have high cholesterol, that just adding a bowl of oatmeal a day, they've been showing can really drop your cholesterol even.
Yeah,
Diet
yeah.
changes too, even low carbohydrate. There's lots of different things. Again, we're not giving medical advice here. These are just personal things that we've either tried, or everybody is different. So you need to do your own research. If you're not sure, this is something new to you. There's many naturopathic nutritionists out there, or, if you've got a naturopathic doctor that is certified, not somebody just sticking on that title on the back of their name, like do your research, do your homework. But we should do
Yeah.
that with everything. I always think it's a good thing to question everything. Just because somebody says it's good doesn't mean it's good. If it piques your interest, great, but do some research on it. And people say, well, I'm too busy. Well, we got a lot of time on our hands, a lot of us still to this day, that we can take a look, and just not by watching TV. There's books
Yeah.
out there. Go ahead, doggy.
Yeah, and I think also that something that is good for me
Hmm.
may not necessarily be good for someone else,
Hmm.
especially that milk. If you are lactose intolerant,
Yes, I am.
then you just probably shouldn't do it, because I can get away with it, but maybe another person can't. So
Hmm.
there are things like that. And of course, peanuts, a lot
Hmm.
of people are allergic to it. So we got to be a little careful in our research to find out what can we do and what can we not do, even though it worked for someone else.
Yeah, you have to tweak everything. And if you're not sure, like I said, there are always resources of professionals out there that you can find. There's actually a lot of people, even online, that are professional professional people that, especially during with what's going on right now, whether they're maybe not as busy or they've got the time. There's a lot of people that put out a lot of different content out there. And again, I think you have to question everything, and you do
Yeah.
need to tweak whatever that's individual for you as yourself as an individual. Because again, and I always hate when I hear this, well, if it weren't for me, or if I can do it, anybody can do it. No, that's
Yeah.
not true. That's not true at all. I'm going to read a few comments here. Um, Shady D said, I would think people with COPD would do well with increasing alkaline through diet. Maybe, but again, Shady D, like I said, that's a pretty complicated illness. Like most people would think that oxygen would help a person with COPD. But when you get into breaking down the blood gases and things like that, you're actually quite surprised if you start studying it that they can't have too high of an oxygen level, or that can kick out the drive to breathe, the natural drive to breathe, like say when you're sleeping or you're not thinking about it. I mean, we don't think about it when we're breathing all the time. Then Shady D added Dr. Robert O. Young is another one to follow. Yes, and that's actually, I think you sent me that it was with Sasha Stone and Judy Mikovits, Dr. Judy Mikovits, and
Yeah.
Dr. Robert O. Young. That was the presentation where I was mentioning what happened on the plane. I have to agree with this. I saw red with this thing I'm going to mention. And not only with working in the community, I also worked in the NICU with labor and delivery, and I worked in maternal newborn. And I saw this video on Facebook, and I don't get angry very often, but I went from 0 to 1,000. I think it's terrible that mothers are having to labor with a mask on, because
Yeah.
until you've been through labor, that's enough. But when I saw this, here's a mother that had just given birth to her newborn with the mask on, and there's plastic all over the baby.
Yeah.
Plastic to bond the two of them. And the reason why this upset me, first of all, newborns are nasal breathers. They can't breathe through their mouth. I kept thinking, my God, what's this kid's oxygen level at with this plastic plastered to its face? Second of all, the reason why a newborn is given to its mother immediately, part of the bonding process is the smell of the mother, the pheromones of the mother,
Yeah.
the smell of the breast milk, the whole bit, the touch. That's why even in the NICU, and they've proven this for years, that when you have a really, really premature baby, it's called kangaroo care. And it doesn't matter whether it's a mom or the dad, the baby is placed right on the skin. That's so important, skin to skin contact, to have all that. That's why it made me see red, because I meant, who thought this up? I mean, this baby's going to go home with this mother, probably, depending on how the baby was born. Some mothers go home a couple hours after they give birth to the baby. So now you got to have a piece of plastic over your newborn's face. Like, that made no sense to me. No sense at all. I don't know. Have you seen that video, Augie?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Have you? I'm going to read a few more comments. There's something else I wanted to ask you. Hang on. And Shady D says this insanity needs to stop. And yes, I think that would be a beautiful thing. But I'm going to be really honest with you. That gentleman I was talking to in my city, I said, I hate to tell you this, but it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. We're not going back to the way we were. And I'm not being negative, but it's true, because every time, and we're getting people like this, we've got snitch lines here where it's been here since day one. You can call and you get money if somebody gets, has 5 people when they're only allowed 3 and the police show up. Or, if you wear your mask or you do this or you do that, then, we're just going to go back to normal. That's what I keep finding here in Canada. I don't speak to everybody in Canada, obviously, but I've spoken to enough people. What they're not realizing is it doesn't matter what we do. Something else is added. Something else is added. Something else is added.
Yeah.
We're not going back. But this is what I'm finding: people that really believe that narrative are really ostracizing other people that are awake and are realizing. So they're turning ourselves on each other. We're doing
Yeah.
the work for them, rather than, put our differences aside. Let's pull together and unite, because we are fighting a war. I truly believe that. Don't you, Augie?
Yeah, it's the Third World War right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not one of bullets. It's one of
It's silent.
disease,
Mm-hmm.
mental disease and physical disease.
So I guess what can we do? Is there anything that you've received? I know.
Well, I think there's things we can do, and that is what we're doing on the Mastermind Connection on Sundays. That is one of the big things that we can do, because we have done some incredible things by joining minds together, creating a mastermind. And because science has proven to us that we live in a mind created universe.
Yes.
There is repeatable scientific experiments proving that our mind created everything around you.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, why don't we use our mind to create things that we do like instead of things that we think is done to us?
Mm-hmm.
So now that's why we get together on Sundays, and we intend for specific things that we like to see in our future. We envelope that in vivid, colorful images, intention, emotion, love, gratitude for already having it. And we take that ball of creation and place it in the future at a time coded event.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the calendar, the universe doesn't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
No, place it at a Christmas party, a birthday party, a New Year's party, or any other event
Mm-hmm.
that has an image with it, not just a calendar plate.
Mm-hmm.
And then put it there and go back and forth and visit it every day, back and forth. When you do that, you lay down etheric tractor strings to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you go up and down those strings, visit it every day, the more solid that string become.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get drawn up that timeline along that string to that thing that you envisioned in the future. And of course, do whatever you can within your physical capability to help make it happen. Sometimes that's not even necessary, but it will help to do it. So now, when the linear time goes along, all the way up that string to that, let's say, New Year's party, when you get to the New Year's party, if you have helped and you've done that, chances are you will just walk right into it and it is yours.
I love that concept and I embrace it. I need to, I have my alarm set. I'm always doing something, but I need to come, especially with this, because I feel so, so, so emphatically strong about this.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to have, there's that our network hits over 200 countries globally. So there's going to be people that are going to say, okay, I hear you. I believe in what you're saying. What can I put out into the universe to help change the outcome of where we're headed? What can they do, say, if they're not able to attend the mastermind? We're going to talk about this at the end, how to connect with Aage, how to become part of this. I recommend so many people to this off the air, on the air. But what can people do as a collective to add to what we're visualizing, what we want to see, so we can make a change?
Well, first of all, we are inviting people of good conscience. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are. We have Muslims, we have Christians, and there's I know there's one Hindu that is coming to it. So there is religion don't mean a thing, because the mind doesn't work with religion. It works with the spirituality of the power of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are in Moscow, Russia, don't mean anything. Yeah, it's in in the middle of the night or so, somewhere where you are. It doesn't matter. There's still a way that you can observe and participate in this. Now we do it on Sundays at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, East Coast USA time.
Mm-hmm.
But we have people from actually 5 continents now participating.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter, because if it's in the middle of the night, you can watch the replay and embed yourself in the replay of it, and you will participate at the time when it was done originally. That is what quantum physics is now telling us. It is the emotion of it that is important, because time and space is not as we are told.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I write a book about this also, Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness, where I go deeply into how to create the future before you have to live it.
Mm-hmm.
And I teach people how to use their mind in ways that is totally used to be thinking was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But this is something that everybody can do, and families should do it at least once a week. Get together, have a brainstorming sessions, and find out what do you really want as a family or individuals within the family. Create an image of it with emotion, feeling, love, gratitude, images, and then place that in the future at that time coded event and keep working on it, working on it, working on it. Go up and down, visit it, and you're going to find some really amazing things. We have done some incredible things with some of the stuff that we have done. Some of it defies the laws of physics,
Mm-hmm.
physical physics, but not universal physics, because quantum and the field works on a different level of physics. So
Okay.
this is something that I highly recommend for people. If you want to participate in something on Sundays, send us an email to the mastermind connection at gmail.com. The mastermind connection at gmail.com. And send us an email, and I'll get you a link so you can come back and you can visit us and see what you think. Maybe this is for you, or maybe it isn't. Who knows? So then that's up to you to decide.
So what I'm thinking is, and I can't stress this enough, and anybody that watches my show regularly will tell you I practically mention your show. It seems like every show practically, and I tell people how to get a hold of you even privately because I believe in it that much. But we've got a lot of people out there with a real level of fear to the point of not wanting to leave their home. A lot of people feeling very powerless. Like, is there anything that we could suggest or could help people that would be able to give them some hope? Because a lot of people have a lot of lost hope too, especially if they wake up, especially if they're red pilled, whatever you want to call it, and they start seeing it for what it really is. And you see so many people saying, never in my lifetime did I ever think I was going to see this. And they are. And people are feeling really, really, really helpless because they don't know what to do, where to go, when is this going to end? Um, Afraid of something, they don't know who to trust, where to get information. Like, how do people get out of that mindset?
Well, there's one good thing they can do absolutely first:
Hmm.
turn the TV off.
Yes. Hmm.
And then go to your radio and find a program that is of an alternative character. That's kind of like Coast to Coast AM is a good one here in the United States. Red Eyes over in Scandinavia, that's a good one. And there are other papers, and there are publications and websites that you can find that speaks in an alternative methods. Go to the ones that is able to document what they're talking about, because there is disinformation from both the left side and the right side of politics and the life, like CNN. Like, what CNN stands for. That's certainly not news. So turn that off, and then go to somewhere where you can find more alternative information that will tell you things that is kept from you.
Hmm.
And just come to our Sunday sessions, and we do also things on Monday night and Wednesday night when we have deep discussions, and some very interesting things come up once in a while.
Hmm.
Today we talked about cellular memory, how
That,
cellular memory can come from a previous life
yeah.
situation through consciousness and manifest itself in your present body.
Yes.
Ask anybody that is afraid of water. Very likely they drowned in a previous life situation, and now that's transferred here, so they're afraid of water. They will never go swimming in the ocean or anything like that.
Okay, so I can agree with you on that because I've also studied near death experiences for almost 40 years. And what's been extremely interesting and fascinating to me is children who remember their previous lives and children that are born. There's one case in particular that I'm thinking of right now, a child in India that was born and had a birthmark, very strange birthmark. And he remembered his previous life. He remembered that he had been murdered. He knew the name of the gentleman. He knew where the weapon that he had been murdered with was hidden. It never had been solved. And where he had been shot or stabbed, it was one or the other, was exactly where this birthmark was. So he wouldn't let it go. He'd never even been to this place. He kept talking about his previous family, his wife, his children, the whole bit. He went back and actually helped the police solve his murder by pointing out who had murdered him. He was shown a picture of his family that he'd never seen these people before. And this is like a young child. We're talking like 4 or 5 years old. I know you know all this. I'll get this for our listeners. And he pointed out, oh yeah, that's my wife, and that was my son, so and so, and that was so his parents actually brought him there. They were able to ascertain all these things he was saying to be the absolute truth. You are absolutely right about this. There's another Canadian who is a friend of mine, Chris Lee. He's been on the show quite a few times, and he does past life regression work. But what he does is to help you release that stuff that we carry forward. He agrees 100%. He's done over, God, it's probably over 20,000 cases in the past 25 years. He's got 6 books out there, but he truly believes that the root of anything, whether it's an illness, like say arthritis, it could be anything, or somebody gets into a car accident and then, that it never heals, like they're in chronic pain or whatever. And they'll say, well, that was from the car accident. How could that be from a previous life? And his theory is that yes, you did get in a car accident. Yes, you did get in an injury, have an injury, but the body is capable of healing itself 100%. But because of whatever it may be that you're carrying from that past life, maybe that's the way you died or it was a previous injury that
Yep.
once, and he doesn't tell you what to think. And I've actually had a session with him and he helps you release that. And you do all the work. He just kind of guides you through it. And that's what his books are about, all the really interesting cases and what people were able to lose. And the reason why he started this was exactly what you're talking about, fears and
Yeah.
phobias. You know, people
Absolutely.
people not being able to wear a turtleneck. He knows right
Yep.
away. He won't tell you that till afterwards, but more than likely it's going to come up that you were hung in a previous life, or like you said, afraid of the water, or strange phobia. Usually something, not usually, always related to something in a past life from cellular memory that you're still carrying forward that you no longer need, right?
There is much evidence to that fact. And there are people also that they don't even believe in reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
But when they are put under hypnosis to find out why are you afraid of spiders or something,
Mm-hmm.
then in that hypnosis session, when they are not totally aware of what they're saying, it comes out that they got bit
Mm-hmm.
by a black recluse or some
Yeah.
poisonous spider and died from it.
Yeah.
And when they come back out and listen to the recording, they sit there with their jaw on the floor and say, no, I didn't say that. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But there it is.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
that's
these
what
things
his work
happen.
is. He
Yeah.
helped to release that. So I'm not quite sure what Shady D is saying here, because she's saying if you're going to listen to a radio show, try and find one with a chat because the audience won't put up with BS. I don't know what that quite means. Actually, my partner Dell and I were talking about this, and I think if you're one that listens to podcasts, say while you're driving or whatever, that's a great thing. But I think people nowadays, they're all looking for a new source of entertainment. The entertainment industry has definitely gone for a dump with what's been going on. And I think when people are on video, it's a lot easier for people to relate. I agree, chat is definitely a bonus. Some people don't have a chat room though, if they're just say new on YouTube or whatever. You're not sure who to listen to. Ask other people, do a search and find out what's popular out there and why, and see if it fits well with you. Or another thing, I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to be negative, but if you want to really know who's telling the truth, see who's been deplatformed or their channel's been shut off, or maybe they're removed from a certain social media. I'm going to say this personally, I would bet they're telling the true
Yeah.
thoughts. Hmm.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
been very lucky so far. We have been skirting the issues sometime and using creative language.
Hmm.
But so far we've been lucky. But you never know.
Yeah, well, you have to be very creative and very careful. That's why we're not on our other channel. We're usually on the UPRN channel on YouTube, and unfortunately, and it was not really anybody's fault. It was kind of a technical issue, but there was a topic like this discussed, and known ahead of time. It just it got added to YouTube, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It was a technical issue. And so we got a slap on the hand for a week on that channel. That's why we're being very careful in this channel about what we're talking about. But I think that it bears talking to, because the more that we are talking about, because the more that we talk about this and realize that, and I've been saying this since day one, if we could just put our differences aside, because I've never seen so many families, friendships, you name it, fractured over things that really don't matter. I
Yeah,
got the saying, I've said it 100 times in the show, and I'm going to say it for the 101st time if you want. When my youngest son, he's no trouble now, but when he was little, sometimes he'd have a meltdown for 3 or 4 hours, and all you could do is hold him, just make sure he didn't hurt himself or hurt anything. And it came to me, and now know, I think it came from spirit. But it's this: if it makes no difference 10 minutes from now, let alone 10 years from now, let it go and pick your battles. And
yeah,
what I mean by that is the things that people are fighting about, the things that people are arguing about. You're losing friendships of years and years because you don't agree on a political party or whatever it may be. Are you really going to care 10 years from now? Are you really going to care? And if you're not, agree to disagree, realize we're all a part of each other and that we're stronger united than divided. We need to start pulling together, I think, as humanity. I think that can make a difference too, don't you,
yeah,
Audrey?
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't get mad anymore either. There were times in my past when I did, and I don't remember last time I actually been really mad at something. I just can't think of it
Mhm.
because it's not worth it. What you're doing, you're hurting yourself more than what you get in gain from feeling that you got something up on the other guy.
Mhm. Well, I know that they say that revenge is a dish best served cold, but you can ask anybody that have been consumed with the thought of revenge. And I've met people like this, and it's been years and years in the planning, and they're just like, they're just going to get that person for what they've done. And then 9 times out of 10, when you talk to the person when they've done it, yeah, maybe they had a minute of elation or maybe half a day, maybe a day. But in the end, did they feel any better?
No,
No. Mm-mm. All you've done is hurt somebody else. It doesn't take away what's happened to you. You have to find a healthier way to work through it. And I think it goes back to even the way that we even started this, Augie, that your thoughts, your words, your emotions are so powerful. Because with the mastermind, that's why I believe in this so strongly. And I really do talk. It's not just because you're on here. I really do talk about this, Augie, quite a bit.
yeah, we
Be-
have.
Because people don't realize this, again, because we're not taught this, and especially collectively around the world with the level of fear, with anger. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of low vibrational stuff going on. That this is the time that when one person can make a difference. Because I've heard so many people say, well, what can I do? Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm. So I love what you said, that you're creating this and to move forward in the future, because a lot of people, and you talk about this, say The Secret, when it came out 15 years ago, and everybody thought this was miraculous and everybody was so excited. And then it didn't last because nobody could get it to work for themselves. But I think you hit the nail on the head with many of the salient points you brought up about creating it, going back, marking it with something significant, a date, not just like picking, I don't know, August 15th. That's my birthday. It'd be significant for me, but not for everybody else. But then keep going back to it and revisiting it, and really, because I don't think people realize that anything that we have in this this planet in this lifetime, somebody has thought it up and created it, right?
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. And also, what you mentioned before, what can people do to create hope? Well, there is a lot of hope, knowing that you are in a mind created universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, once you understand the problem, in fact, these are success principles that super successful people do. They get challenges too,
Right.
big ones,
Mm-hmm.
usually bigger ones than we have.
Mm-hmm.
And once you understand the challenge, if it's too big to deal with, break it up into small sections.
Right.
Start on one section, get that one done, then stay next one, then get that one done, and so on. Because you may be able to solve the problem in smaller sections instead of attacking the whole big concept. That may be too big at the time. But once you understand it, don't think about it anymore, because now you bury yourself in the problem solving process and you start creating the solution for what you want to happen. Now you go and create it in your mind what you want to happen. Make sure that it is good for not just you but other people. It's got to be at least three. That's universal law. So for a family of three or a family of two, pick grandma. Add her to it. So you get at least three people or many other people, and then place that in the future and visit it. Put more detail into it, emotion, feeling, colorful images. Work on that picture in the future. Live in the future. You know, a lot of people say, live in the present. If you do live in the present, you're going to have what is in the present. Make damn sure that you want what is in the present before you do that.
You know, we are almost out of time, Augie. I swear to God, time just flies by when I have you. I'm going to have you back on. I'm already booked almost to the end of May, which I'm very grateful for. But I'm going to have Augie back on because I always have the best discussions with you. I never know where it's going to go. We usually don't. We were going to talk about death and stuff. We know death is always going to happen.
Yeah, I
This is
had no clue what we were going to talk about.
I always know we're going to have a fantastic conversation, and it's never the same conversation, which I absolutely love. Where can people find you? You can remind them all about everything, the mastermind, your books, your shows, everything.
Well, first of all, I'm going to repeat the email address for the mastermind. That is themastermindconnection@gmail.com. Send us an email. I'll send you a link, and then we'll start communicating. If you want to see what we are doing, what Nori and I are doing for the podcast and the radio show, go to broadcastteamalpha.com. And if you go there, just scroll down into the videos and the radio shows, you'll find some really interesting videos down there. One that deals with time travel. I got picture evidence of time travel in there, and you just go have a ball.
Mm-hmm.
And going to the picture gallery, there's 5,000 pictures there of things that should not exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Blow
impossible,
your
but
mind.
it
I
does
share
exist.
those videos all the time. The one of the moon, the one of the stuff on Mars, and strange things on Earth. I share that to so many people.
Yeah.
What about your books, Augie? Where can they find those
Yeah, the
too?
book, Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness. It teaches you how to use your mind in ways you normally would think would be impossible. And go to, it's on Amazon, and you will find it on Broadcast Team Alpha if you go into the products there, and you'll find it. If you Google that name, then you'll find it.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much for being here. I want to thank everybody that was in the chat and for your comments. I want to thank everybody that's listening, whether you're listening on the archive or you're listening live from wherever you may be. I send you all so much love and light. If you want to find me, you can find me on the Angel Rock, or sorry, facebook.com/Angel Rock. That's to book a reading with me or some healing sessions. I also have two groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things within the paranormal. And then the the Angel Rocker tribe is for all things like some of the things we talked about tonight, the power of the mind. We deal with things like chakras, how to access some of your own intuitive gifts and healing gifts. Also, I'll be back tomorrow night with my PIC or partner in crime and my bestie, Seraphine Hurley, with Tripping the Void from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And just before I go, Aage, I forgot to tell you, Seraphine said to please say hello to Aage.
One thing I want to mention really quick before we go, if you go to Broadcast Team Alpha, there I have taught some classes that you can participate in. Some of those classes are self-hypnosis, meditation, how to develop more psychic abilities, and astral travel, and how billionaires think.
Love it. Love it. So everybody make sure to check all that out. I will have Aage back on again. And again, like I said, I wish you all a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks, Aage.
Live long and prosper.
Oh, can't do it. There we go. Live long and prosper. Hopefully Joe hasn't fallen asleep.